psychologically devastating.
Okay, what about those finals? Because I was at most of them with Michael Jordan. Those teams weren't great. Not Michael's teams, the competition.
That's another common argument that you hear from Jordan detractors, that none of the teams he faced in the finals were great. However, the Utah Jazz, which are, in my opinion, the most disrespected and delegitimized team based upon their talent and accolades, that team beat. They didn't just beat, they beat the shit out of the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. They beat the shit out of Tim Duncan and David Robinson, the Spurs. They destroyed the Houston Rockets with Hakeem, Scottie Pippen, and Charles Barkley. And you're telling me that was not a great team? John Stockton, still to this day, has the most assists, more than Jason Kidd, more than Steve Nash, more than Chris Paul. I would take John Stockton in a heartbeat over Chris Paul, over Jason Kidd, over any other point guard in the history of the league besides Magic in his prime. The Blazers were not a great team, but people fail to look at the time period in the context of the time, rather than how we view it today. At one point in time, Clyde Drexler was considered a rival to Jordan. It was not a foregone conclusion before that series began that Jordan was better than Drexler. Gary the Glove Payton, who was on the Supersonics, is one of the all-time greats. Probably the best defensive point guard in the history of the league. Not to mention that if he wasn't addicted to drugs, Shawn Kemp would be a Hall of Famer. Shawn Kemp was Blake Griffin on steroids. Shawn Kemp was Lob City before Lob City. My issue is that instead of just saying, I believe LeBron is the GOAT because of this and this and this, you have to not only trash Jordan, but you have to trash his competition. I already stated in a previous video that the 91 Lakers were not a great team, considering the injuries and the age of the players and stuff like that. But you got to be intellectually honest when you are trying to debate, rather than cherry picking certain things to fit your narrative.
They were not great teams.
Okay, how about this? I'm going to say this point right here. In Game 7 last year, LeBron had 10 points. The Cavaliers only scored 18. He had a triple-double, but all we remember is Kyrie's shot. But what about the block? The shot becomes obsolete because now they don't need a three to tie.
Yes.
They can get a free
and they still need another bucket after that.
But Skip, how many teams did Jordan face in the final that we say were better than the Warriors?
You can make that case. So you have a chance now in the next 3 years.
So, other than the Warriors with Kevin Durant, you're adding Kevin Durant to a 73-win team. I would argue the Warriors pre-KD with Clay before he got injured, with Curry, with Draymond Green, Bogut, all those players, I would argue that the Utah Jazz could compete hard against them. I don't know if they could beat them, but if you're going to unequivocally say that every Warriors team, with the exception of Kevin Durant, is better than any team Jordan beat, then you're saying they're better than the Tim Duncan and David Robinson Spurs, the Hakeem, Barkley, and Pippen Rockets, and the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, because the Jazz beat the hell out of those teams. It wasn't even close. But the 2016 Warriors are the greatest team in history. There's no way in hell you're going to beat them. But here's the issue, though. LeBron is a victim of his own circumstance. LeBron is the first player in NBA history to voluntarily join a super team with two other superstars in their primes. The Boston Celtics were old and they were traded. LeBron left in free agency. Kevin Durant even stated in an interview if LeBron never left Cleveland for Miami, he would have never joined the Warriors. So LeBron is a victim of his own decision. Now you see Kyrie and Harden, that was a failed super team, but they joined the Nets. Now you see free agents all the time trying to stack the deck in their favor in their primes with super teams. That never happened until LeBron went to South Beach. So it's his fault, in a sense, that Kevin Durant joined the Warriors.
To show us what you can do.
What
against
team
that
they faced
super
was
team.
better than the Warriors in 2015, 2016? What team did Michael Jordan face that was better than the
And he didn't beat the Warriors in 2016 either, so that's not a very solid argument.
Warriors in
I'll
2015?
give you that, but I have a question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a superstar meltdown the way LeBron James did against the Dallas Mavericks that you're favored over in the 2011 finals?
I love him. He's so uncomfortable. That's why you never become such a fan of somebody that you can't be objective. Like, Nick Wright is such a LeBron fanboy. He squirms uncomfortably in his seat like someone just insulted his mother or his lover at the very fact you would criticize LeBron. I mean, Nick Wright's a smart guy. I have nothing personally against him, but his fandom for LeBron is just a little weird to be infatuated with a man so much.
Never seen anything like it.
I've seen it this way, because I've seen it with Kobe, one of my favorites, and I've seen it with Mike. And I wish Michael would have melted down. But you know what Michael do? They shoot through it, and they keep missing.
Okay, Kobe did melt down against the Utah Jazz. The same Utah Jazz that I just went into detail with how good they were. LeBron melted down in those finals. He was the third leading scorer on his own team. Jordan never melted down. Think about this. When he lost to the Boston Celtics, who had Larry Bird, Bill Walton, Kevin McHale, Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge, they were stacked. In one game, he scored 66 points. That's far from melting down. He averaged around 30 for the entire series on over 50% shooting. Even though he lost, there's never been a playoff series where Michael Jordan totally melted down and just couldn't play. But especially on the biggest stage, especially in the NBA Finals, there's never been a Finals where Jordan just totally, utterly melted down. That's just never happened. And Kobe, God rest his soul, I love Kobe, but he's not top 10 all time if you know basketball. He's not even on the same level as LeBron and Jordan. He's just not.
Can I listen? I'm probably on a set with at least another ardent LeBron James supporter and one that's close to it. I might be the biggest LeBron fan. I will look into the camera and say, the finals against the Mavericks is the biggest black mark on any resume of any all-time Pantheon player. The problem is, in the 6 years since then, he's had the greatest 6-year stretch of basketball in the history of the sport.
In 2014, they were blown off the court by a record finals margin in 5 games.
And
go look against 3 and 4.
Correct.
Go look
And
at
he
him.
was the best
He
player in that
disappeared.
series. He shot 58% and scored 28 a game.
At least Nick Wright is forthright to admit what the black mark is. However, the best 6 years in the history, think about this, okay? In the 2014 finals, LeBron was blown out by a record margin. The teams were comparable. The Spurs were older. You always like to hear people say, Jordan didn't beat the Pistons until they were older. Actually, Isaiah was 31. The players were in their early 30s when Jordan finally beat them. However, the players on the Spurs were over the age of 30. Manu was older, Tony Parker was older, and so was Duncan. You might say, well, they had Kawhi. Well, that's before Kawhi reached his prime. However, I'll give you this. It wasn't a foregone conclusion that LeBron was going to win the finals. But with Chris Bosh, with Ray Allen, Dwayne Wade, you should at least compete. They got destroyed in that series. There was no chance in hell they were going to win that series. They only won one game and they were lucky to win that. I'm not saying that the Miami Heat should have won that series, but they at least should have been more competitive. In closing, you got to be objective. For some reason in America today, it is looked down upon not to totally hate somebody or to drink their bathwater, right? There have been countless times when I gave someone credit and I was considered a LeBron sexual, even though I root against LeBron typically. There were other periods of time where I offered legitimate criticisms. I said he's still top 4 all time and he has the chance to be higher, but he's not as good as Jordan, and I was considered a hater. Even though out of the thousands of professional athletes who have ever put on a basketball jersey, imagine being top 4. Would you be insulted if somebody said, out of 1,000 people, over 1,000 people, you're top 4? How is that considered a hater? Here's the way that I look at LeBron. He is not set in stone. I don't think he can ever be the GOAT simply because of the Dallas Mavericks series and the Spurs series. Got blown off the floor. However, if he is able to win a ring in the Western Conference against the Suns, against the Warriors, and against the Sixers or the Bucks, a great team from the East, I think he can surpass Magic. And if he's able to win another one, maybe Kareem. I will give him credit. I will eat crow. I will do anything I need to do. But because of the Mavericks and Spurs series, he'll never be the GOAT. He just won't. The other thing is because he constantly stacks the deck in his favor. Whenever Jordan lost to the Pistons, he never thought about joining a super team. Whenever Magic lost to the Celtics or vice versa, they never thought about leaving their team and joining up and stacking the deck in their favor. What LeBron typically does, I call it the LeBron cycle. LeBron joins a team. He stacks the deck with superstars. The first year, he makes the finals and loses. The second year, they typically win a ring. The third year, the team is in shambles and shells of their former selves. LeBron tucks his tail between his legs and runs away. He did that at Miami. After they lost to the Spurs, Dwayne Wade had injuries catching up with him. Chris Bosh was getting older. LeBron tucked his tail between his legs and ran back to Cleveland, where they had the number 1 draft pick, which they traded for Kevin Love and Kyrie. After losing to the Warriors, he tucked his tail between his legs and ran to the Lakers. I honestly think that when you look back at this Lakers team, you have Westbrook, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Love him or hate him, I'm not a big fan of him, personally. But facts are facts. Anthony Davis, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Carmelo is going to be a Hall of Famer. Hell, Dwight Howard is going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's out of his prime, I'll be intellectually honest. You have LeBron, 1 Hall of Famer. Anthony Davis, a 2nd Hall of Famer. Westbrook, a 3rd Hall of Famer. Has there ever been a team in the history of the NBA with 3 Hall of Famers averaging double-digit points that didn't even make the playoffs? That's going to be a pretty big stain on LeBron's legacy. I think LeBron is going to tuck his tail between his legs. He's going to leave. And he's going to find another team, try to stack another super team. That's what he does. He doesn't stay and fight like Kobe, Jordan, Magic, Bird. He tucks his tail between his legs and he leaves. LeBron's an all-time great. He has the chance to be the 2nd greatest player of all time. However, I don't think it's going to happen.